Have you ever prayed and asked God to change a situation only to wonder why nothing seemed to be happening? I've prayed those prayers so many times. I've asked God to fix situations, to change people's hearts, and even just remove the obstacles totally. There were many times I felt like nothing was changing at all. But looking back now, I realize that something had changed the way I see difficult situations. God wasn't ignoring my prayers. He was just changing me before He changed my circumstances. If you're in a season where you've been waiting on God for something, I hope that this encourages you today. Looking back over my life, there have been several situations where I really wanted things to change. I found myself wanting answers and wanting people to act differently. And also for my peace of mind, I wanted problems to just disappear. When nothing seemed to happen quickly, I became very impatient. I couldn't understand why God wasn't moving any faster. But now, years later, I can honestly say that things actually were changing. They just weren't changing in a way that I expected them to. Instead of immediately changing my situation, God was changing me. I don't remember the exact moment that I realized this. It probably happened gradually as my relationship with God grew. Sometimes the situation eventually changes, sometimes it doesn't. But every time, God uses it to transform us in some way. For years, family members would come to me whenever they wanted to vent about another family member. Sometimes it involved the situation that we were all dealing with together, and then there were other times that it had nothing to do with that. They just wanted to vent about them because they were just frustrated. After a while, it became exhausting. I started dreading going back home because I knew I would probably be caught up in some kind of conflict when I got there. I remember asking God, why do they keep coming to me with all of their drama? I prayed that He would fix the situation. I also prayed that He would just stop the conflict. But things didn't really immediately change, at least not on the outside. God was teaching me boundaries on the inside instead. I realized I couldn't control whether people came to me, but I could control how I responded to them. So I started making small changes. If someone needed to vent, I would listen for a little while. But if the conversation kept going in circles or it went in a direction that I wasn't comfortable with, I would gently redirect. Also, many times I would ask if they'd even talk to the person about what they're upset about. That one question often stopped the conversation because it shifted the responsibility back to where it needed to go. Before visiting my hometown, I actually started preparing myself mentally. If I knew certain topics would come up, I decided ahead of time that I would respond a certain way. Instead of reacting emotionally in that moment, I already had a plan. Another thing I learned was not to stay longer than I needed to. That was also really helpful. I would decide ahead of time when it was time to leave so that I had time to mentally prepare for work the next day. I didn't want to carry all of that, the next day. But none of those things changed my family overnight, but they did change me. Another example was the legal situation with my ex. If you watched my channel for a while, then you've already know that I've been dealing with this for quite some time. There have been many moments where I've prayed, God, please fix this. Sometimes I wondered why it seemed like nothing was happening. There were also seasons where I felt like my ex was just getting away with everything. I couldn't understand why God appeared to be allowing it. It felt unfair and frustrating, and like justice was taking forever. But over time, I began to see that God wasn't absent in this situation at all. He was just working. He was working, and just not in me, but in ways that I couldn't fully see at the time. I've had to learn patience in ways that I never really wanted to. I've had to surrender control and to stop believing that a delay automatically meant that God wasn't doing anything when he actually really was doing something. Sometimes there are things that have to happen before the breakthrough actually comes. God could be preparing us and preparing other people. He could also be preparing our circumstances. When I ask God to change a situation, I also need to be willing for him to change me. That's something huge for me. Because if I stay exactly the same, I'll often respond the same way, even if my circumstances did improve. God has taught me patience, boundaries, peace. He's also taught me that I don't have to carry everyone's emotional burdens, which was another big deal because it was starting to take a toll on me. Another thing that I learned is that waiting, it wasn't wasted. And most importantly, he's taught me to trust him when I don't understand what he's doing. That is huge. Maybe you're watching this today and you've been praying about the same thing for months. Of course, I've been there. Or maybe it's been years. You're wondering if God hears you. You're wondering why nothing is changing. So I want to encourage you with this. Don't overlook the work that God may be already doing. Maybe he's strengthening your faith or teaching you wisdom and patience. He could be healing wounds that you didn't even realize that you had. Or he could be preparing you for what comes after your prayer is answered. Just because you couldn't see movement doesn't mean that he isn't moving. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't what changes around us. It could be what is changing within us. And really, he's still working on me. Still a work in progress. So if you're in a waiting season today, I hope this reminds you that your waiting isn't in vain. God may be doing far more than you can even imagine right now. If this video has encouraged you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Has there ever been a time when you realized God was changing you before he changed your circumstances? Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.